So, what kind of person are you? For the most part, I'd encourage you up to a certain level of life to go through structure, because it will help you think, it'll help you develop yourself. And then thereafter, when you found and you know a little bit about yourself, and you can assess yourself a bit better, then you take the next step.
Excellent, thank you so much. There are some really good, I have to even use two questions, Tola, Adeyemi, for you here, and feel free to join in on the reading, but let me put this out there because a lot of questions are coming in. These are two questions that are very similar, and I think this speaks to you, a part of your presentation where you talked about doing things heartily and doing things well with morals. Morality is a question that comes up a lot, a topic in Nigeria. How do you, this is again from the audience on Slido, how do you avoid compromising scenarios where your morals are in question in the workplace, or as a CEO or entrepreneur? And then also, how do you create an ethical workplace and make profits as an entrepreneur? I throw those two to you. And also, if you want to join in on the reading thing and preparation, feel free.
Okay. No, I think as far as the reading is concerned, I think the points have been made there. So let me speak to the questions. You know, let me give an example, and then it leads into what we're saying. So when our firm started, we were very small. We were the smallest of all the firms that were in Nigeria at the time. And we needed to do tax work. We said we would help clients with their tax work. And we would go to but we determined from the beginning that we're not going to pay any bribes or facilitation payments to get tax work done. And we would go to the tax office at that time. This is some decades ago now. We'll go to the tax office and we will not be attended to. You know, we would be put at the back of the queue. We would, not be successful in getting our clients' affairs through the tax office. But we persevered. Some clients decided, these guys, they can't help me. Let me go and deal with those who can. Some who had the same values as we did decided we would stay, and let's keep at it. And we kept at it. We would go there and argue tax law, tax principles, etc., over and over and over. What did we find? It took time. But over the years, the tax authorities started listening to us. Soon it became a case of, these people, they have come. I beg, attend to them quickly because now grammar, then go they talk here. They'll be quoting this, let them go so that we can deal with the people that we want to deal with. Over time, we started getting our stuff out quite quickly because they then knew that these guys are not going to make a change. What's the point I'm trying to draw out of this? The point I'm trying to draw out of this is that if we keep that end in mind, that the means is just as important as the end, then you have to be ready to hold on to some things, irrespective of what's going on in the environment. Yes, it will be difficult, Yes, it will be difficult. But I believe that holding on to them over time, over a period of time, you will eventually get success. I know the refrain will be that, over time I'll be dead before I see success. I say to you, no, because there is a tide that is happening, believe it or not, in Nigeria. There is a tide that's happening of more and more businesses deciding that we will run our business in an ethical manner and not compromise our business. As an individual, I would say one of the easiest ways to operate in this environment is to join those sorts of companies, or seek to have, if you have your business, seek to have those sorts of companies as your clients. But this is about sticking with it and deciding what you stand for. There are several success stories of companies operating here that have determined to do things ethically and have stood the test of time. Same thing with individuals as well. So don't despair. It's possible to do it and to run a business ethically in Nigeria. It's possible. That's what I would say to you and encourage you to do. Same thing if you're an employee trying to navigate the corporate ladder. Stick to the principles. And if it's not working in that company, then there are several companies where they operate on merit and all of that, and you can associate with those sorts of companies. That will be my answer.
It's a good answer, and I want feel free to clap. I do want everybody else to weigh in on this, because there might be one or two cynical people here who is saying, we've got Total Energies, one of the biggest energy firms in the world. You've got KPMG, which is one of the biggest consulting advisory firms. Ikeja Electric is one of the best performing companies in terms of the electricity sector in Nigeria. You've got a representative from the Paris School Institute of Affairs and also Confident University. It's easy for the three of you, or rather the four of you, to say, oh, be ethical and you can move on and so on and so on. But for a lot of folks here, the reality in Nigeria is that corners have to be cut in order for folks to get ahead. So please, I really do want, if any of you else want to emphasize or rather want to push the point forward to stay the course and be ethical in order to get ahead, in response to a cynical mind that says, look, the reality is different here in this country. Dr. Ada, if you want to take that.
Okay, thank you very much. So, personally, I think cutting corners set in when there's something not right. So, if I'm bringing value to you, or I bear value for your organization, I mean real value, not lobbying my way up or lobbying my way up the corporate ladder. Except you really don't value your business, you'll be willing to let me go for someone who is just, stepping into that space. And just to speak to what you said, we've all had this challenge at different times, in the process of growing up and growing within our various industries. But I can say for myself that it's either God or nothing. And for me, the Bible says the heart of the king and queen is in the hand of the Lord. He turns it in the way which it pleases him. As long as my relationship with God is not questionable, I have a way to get what I want, and it's in the place of prayer. You are a child of God, and so you must have that consciousness. The breath that whoever it is controlled by God. The fact that he wakes up the next day is God's decision to make. And so there is no way you will deprive a child of God. It has happened several times. But when I go on my knees and cry unto my Maker, he will hear me. Many persons who know me as, Dr. Ada prayer. But that's because I share a very rich relationship with God. And when I say rich relationship, not a relationship born out of my parents are Christians, so I must be Christian. Or the in thing in Nigeria now is to identify as a Christian. No. I mean a genuine relationship with God. A sincere, candid relationship with God. Where you know that it's either God or nothing. For me, the moment you cross that line, it doesn't matter what you're offering me. Even if it's $1 billion. When I take God's aerial view over that thing, it loses value. So you must be able to stand for Christ against all odds. You first need to make up your mind about that, so that you're not put in a very difficult situation and some boss is telling you, you need to sleep with me before, or some boss saying, you need to pay this amount before I can. I'll just leave with this instance. Early in my career, I had to travel to South Africa very early. I think that's about almost 16 years ago. I had to go to South Africa. But the in thing at that time is that you need to pay your way, and then they cook up some papers for you. Then I was just about to get married to my husband, and he was like, what do we do? I'm like, what do we do? I'd rather not travel. I'd rather crash the career than pay a dime for visas. In fact, at that time, it looked like, are you crazy? But today, there are multiple visas, unpaid for, natural, that has come with a career, several. And persons will wonder, oh, why haven't you left Nigeria? Why do I have to leave Nigeria? I'm needed here most. The point I'm trying to make is, you need to know what you can take and what. If you don't draw that line, the industry will control you. But when you know it, you stick with it, and like he mentioned, it will pay up over time. Thank you.
All right. So if any of the other panels, Folake, Soetan, we'll come to you in a second, but because of time and because there are so many questions coming in, I really want everyone else to weigh in on this. But please, the ethics part, you can feel free to follow up on that. But this is on Tola Adeyemi's presentation when he was talking about creating an environment that allows aspiring entrepreneurs to share their opinions. And then he also flipped it on the other side and said, for business owners, you need to create an environment where you allow everyone to speak freely. So 2 similar questions again from our audience, and keep your questions coming on Slido. How do you navigate an employer that doesn't create a room for entrepreneur opinion? And the second one is similar. What do you do when, no matter what, your MD is always putting you down? And I do want to add the context that before the Bureau of Statistics revised its unemployment numbers, youth unemployment, underemployment, and unemployment was upwards of almost 70%. So almost 7 out of 10 youth in Nigeria are out of work. They revised it down to 5% or something. I'm not doing that. I'm using the old numbers. So for a young person that is trying to get ahead and just got their first job and possibly has sent these 2 questions saying, I've got in my foot in the door and now I'm dealing with an MD or a boss who doesn't let me to express my opinion and it does always putting me down. How does that person navigate that? Do they leave when there's no jobs out there? So, Folake, we'll start with you. And if you still want to talk about the ethics as well, I really do want folks to address these pressing questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question and a very practical question, and it's real. First of all, I would say that when Tola was speaking, he mentioned about it's important to listen as a CEO. So I'm a CEO, but I was once obviously a floor member, like you rightly said. And I always say something. You manage upwards and you manage down. And I said something about learning. In that environment, there will also be people who are finding a way to work with the CEO or navigate with the CEO. And I'm not asking you to go and emulate the ones that are doing it in the worldly way. Either, for example, maybe a female decides she wants to sleep with the boss. No, I'm not asking you to do that. But first things first is this, value. I say this, and I agree with Tola. There's nobody that adds value. There's no one that adds value either to another individual or to an organization, and the person doesn't want to keep you. So, what is it that the CEO wants to see? The CEO wants to succeed, right? What is important to your CEO or your boss? Why don't you be the person that is adding that value or showing up for that person, understanding the unique personality of that individual, because everybody's different. So if your boss likes to hear the sound of their own voice, allow them, practice listening skill, allow them speak, and then demonstrate to them that you understand what it is that is important to them by either summarizing what they've said and then prefer a solution. That's you adding value. That's you also managing that boss, understanding their uniqueness. Why don't you, and this is also applying biblical principles about wisdom. That is wisdom. There is also honor. Also honor and respect your leaders. So I think for me, the important thing is, first of all, who are you? You know who you are in Christ. You know what your value is. You're not going there to say, I'm a Christian by mouth, but you are saying that I'm a Christian by your actions. How are you showing up? how are you supporting your team members, and how are you adding value to your boss? I think if we pay attention to that and we focus on adding value by what we know will make a difference to the organization or to our boss, you would be able to navigate that sort of difficult situation.
Thank you so much. Bunmi, please want to weigh in on that? Excellent. Thank you.
I'll share a short story. I had a very difficult boss in my early career. And early career, I thought I was the smartest thing since sliced bread. You know, I'd have all the right answers. But guess what? He just couldn't stand the sight of me and the way I would present them. Because so you also have to, and then one day, someone much smarter, older than me, called me and said to me, you know, everything you said on the last 2-3 cases, we've done them. Do you realize that? And I said, yes. But you people didn't listen to me. He said, no, it's the way you presented it. It's the way you came across. I said, but I told you people exactly how it could be done, how we could manage this situation at work. And she said, no. You have to understand the individual you're dealing with. Some people can take answers directly, some cannot, even when you're bringing value. So the way you present it also is very important. And I thought, she's not serious. I did it my way again the next time, and I got hammered. Then I was really sad, and I went home. And you won't believe it, I was crying. And my mom who will tell you that I spent all this money to send you to school. You have, like I said, so degrees. But, you just got it. So she said to me, what was wrong? I said, this is the problem I'm having at work. And my mom, who is an OND holder, me with my many degrees, said, the lady told you the right thing. You've just got to learn how to manage this person. So the next time I didn't quickly raise my hand, or I didn't quickly prefer a solution. I listened to him, I listened to everybody, we finished. And around 6 o'clock, I knocked on he was actually my boss's boss. He wasn't even my boss. I knocked on his door and said, oh, sir, today was very interesting, listening to all the perspectives and all of that. But, sir, what about this? What about this? And a very subtle tone, not coming with, I'm the one who has the solution. And that was when I learned how to become a team player. And he listened to me and he said, okay, go discuss it with your boss tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. The next day, my boss calls me. He discusses it with me. He says, oh, the big boss told me that you had this. This is how we could manage this. And that was sorted. But guess what? After a while, I became his go-to person. He'd walk we were all I was on the floor, and he'd walk to my desk. And it became a congruence point for all of us. I realized that I could not hug all of that. I had to bring in my colleagues so that I did not alienate them as well. So I learned to say, when we're having the conversations, he's standing in front of my desk and saying, so today we traded this, I'm like, oh, why don't you ask this person? I wasn't here, I was. Or why don't you check with this person, just to include everyone in the conversation. So that's another way to go about it.
Thank you so much. So let me show your thoughts. I do want to point out, we are getting a lot of questions from female members of the audience targeted at you three. So I have a follow-up, but I will tell Adeyemi, please, your thoughts on dealing with a difficult, because you had the presentation that set the tone here. So what are your thoughts on dealing with a tough?
I have to say there have been excellent answers so far. The one thing I would add, and it's similar, it's about, I would say, seek alliances within the organization. So find people who know how to deal with the boss and get guidance from them in terms of dealing with the boss. The other thing I find is there are different means of communication. It could be sometimes on that particular day, the boss is focused on a particular attribute or a particular thing that he or she wants to drive that day. And so doesn't want the discussion taken away from that central thing. So in that instance, just like Bunmi said, it's at a quieter time, go have a one-on-one with the boss or speak to someone who has the boss's ear and go through that route. It's about applying, we call it emotional intelligence. You know, some will say applying street sense, but clearly within organizations, you've got to understand the dynamics of the organization and understand how to be most effective. But mentors are very useful in that regard. Thank you.
Fantastic. Look, you guys are asking some really good, very, very thought-provoking questions. This is on gender now. And this question is to the women, and of course, Tola, please, you worked with me, so you go last to answer this. But starting here with Dr. Adab, the question here is this. As a woman, and it's directed to the three of you, all right, in a male-dominated field, how do you assert yourself without coming off as cocky or arrogant? And if you do that too much, are you dimming your fire? You're in technology. I cover it a lot. It's a male-dominated field. You are in electricity. That is a male-dominated field. You are in commodities. That is a male-dominated field. So this person wants you three to be as honest as possible. Dr. Ada.
Thank you very much. Recently, I was at a MasterCard event where I realized that we've all grown up very differently, and sometimes it sort of affects how we see things and how we relate to other people. But after that event, I had to sort of shift my thoughts around how I view when women chicken out. You know, before that day, I will think, don't evaluate me because I'm a woman. Evaluate me based on the capacity, the capability. Keep the fact that I'm a lady aside. And so it's not about me or you being a man or a woman. It's about, can I get the job done? If I can get the job done, so let's do it. However, after that day, I realized that, well, some persons never even had the opportunity to be nurtured with this perspective, with this mindset. And so for those kinds of persons, I would say, develop capacity. Develop capacity. Develop capacity. With capacity, you can get in the room. You can be in the midst of, men. And your voice will still be heard. When the Bible said, in the beginning, God made the man and he made the woman, I don't think he made us anything less. Of course, when we get to the family, it's a different ballgame altogether. But in terms of mental capacity, in terms of being able to discharge our duties, in terms of having the mind of Christ, the Bible says, ye have the mind of Christ. It didn't say, men, you have the mind of Christ, or women, you have. No. As a child of God, I have the creative mind of Christ. So I have almost, if not more, capacity as a woman to recreate any idea. So please, when you're faced with this intimidation within your industry, remember that first you have the mind of Christ, then build capacity. There's no way you will have capacity as a woman that beats that of a man. Look at my co-speakers here. CEO, leading, exactly. A man could have as well taken up that role, but she has the capacity, and you can't deny it. So don't chicken out with the mindset of, oh, engineering is for men. No, build the capacity, and then go for it. You have all it takes to excel. Thank you so much. I think for me, it's capacity building.
Our CEO of Ikeja Electric, your thoughts, please.
Okay. This has been bugging me a bit. CEO of Ikeja Electric. Yes,
I have to emphasize
yes,
that,
I'm
but to
CEO.
inspire these women.
But my name is Folake Soetan. The CEO is just a title. First of all, I think that's important for me. So I work in a male-dominated space. I'm female, proud to be. I'm not an engineer. But what do I bring to the table? I like to see myself as a transformation expert. So I'm going to just talk about practical things I have done to succeed with my team members. And I think a lot of it has to do with the soft skills. So what do I mean? I know the value I bring. I'm a transformation expert. I'm not an engineer. But I've come into a space where I have people that are older than me, that are engineers, that understand the technical part of the business. No matter how much I read today, no matter how much, I don't know that part as much as they do. They are the experts. So I recognize that. I am also a transformation expert. So I am bringing value in terms of harnessing the skills of the people in the team to achieve the objective. I'm clear about who I am. So first thing is, you must accord respect to the people that you work with. Once you accord respect and honor to your team members, what that automatically does that they give you that respect back, not because you are the CEO, but because you have shown them respect and you've honored them. So for me, for example, the things I don't know, I have no issues saying, I don't understand this, please come and show me. Explain it to me, because once you explain it to me, I would know. So they see that I'm humble. Now, I say that, it's funny that you say you're humble, but my action is showing that even though I'm the leader, I have no issues learning from my team members. And so what that means is that they see me as relatable. So they respect me, and then they listen to the value that I am also bringing to the team. Second thing is, people talk about gifts. We have gifts that God has given us as individuals. But I see that, apart from the gift that they've given you as individuals, the opportunities and the people God has placed in your lives are gifts. And so because of the way I treat the gift that I have as an individual, I have that same mindset with regards to the people that work with me. I see them as gifts. And so I'm very grateful and thankful to them. I recognize them. I let them see the value that they're placing. I project them to the board. I celebrate them. I recognize them. And that makes them feel good as an individual. And so they're not looking at me as female. They are seeing me display leadership skills by my actions towards them. I'm not better than them. They're not better than me. We are working together to achieve an objective. And that's the job of a leader. So whether you're female or male, that is the job. Your job is to galvanize the team. And so I don't go into my office thinking I'm female. I go into my office knowing that I'm a leader. I'm responsible for the business objectives. I'm responsible for the development of this individual that God has placed in my life. The platform, me being a Christian, me having the opportunity to touch this life is also ministry. Remember what he said. What is the end game? I believe in purpose. I believe in purpose. So when I say believe in purpose, for me, I understand that their lives tied to mine. And because I understand that these lives that are tied to me are supposed to fulfill their potential, my focus is on trying to bring out the best in them. And when they see that I'm trying to bring out the best in them, they naturally respect me and want to work with me. So I don't see gender at all. I see people, and I respect and give them the honor that they deserve.
Thank you so much. Bunmi, please, your thoughts as well. Speak your mind.
Successful women are usually seen as less likable. That is a fact.
I agree.
And we all, because this question I assume is coming from a woman, and we all must be aware of this, but we should not let it deter us from pursuing success and making impact. Now, how do we do this? We must develop presence. we must also be able to deliver in terms of the objectives that we have been given or the tasks that are assigned to us. And there's so many things that we need to do. You must have knowledge, you must have understanding. And like you said, the areas you don't even know about, you could find those, because let me tell you, being a leader is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing all the people who can help you achieve your objectives. That is what it is. That is leadership. It's about getting people to do things right. So for the women, I'll encourage you, those of you who don't like to read or don't have enough time, you know, there are a lot of apps these days that can help you sort of abridge a book. Read a book, I think her name is Sheryl Crow, Lean In. That is a fantastic book for women who have challenges with male-dominated space, with claiming a space. I would say that at Total Energies, I'm the first of many, many things. And the first of all of these things is gender. The first woman who was head of legal, the first general manager they had as a woman, the first woman on Total Energies Marketing Nigeria board, Nigerian woman. All of this was achieved by the grace of God, the favor and the grace of God. Wisdom, understanding, and knowing my deliverables. It's important that you place a lot of things in God's hands to give you discernment, understanding on approaching issues. Wisdom. They say wisdom is the principal thing. The Bible tells us that. So place even the things you consider really, really small, place in God's hands, and He will help you to succeed. So you must have an understanding of, develop yourself constantly so that you are, I dare say, because unfortunately for us, if the men are at 20, you need to be at 25. Because at all times, people are looking at you. The gender factor is there. They're looking at you and thinking, what does she want to say? What's she bringing to the table? But after a while, it's no longer what's she bringing to the table. Please add your bit into it. Let's, stir it all up and get going in terms of the objectives. So for the women, lean in. And we also have certain traits. That emotional intelligence that someone mentioned earlier, I dare say women have a higher sense of emotional intelligence. Use it very well. If you use it very well in the workplace, you'll understand your colleagues, you'll understand the objectives, and I think you'll push ahead.
Thank you so much. We are unfortunately out of time, and there's so many other questions that are coming in here. So I'm just going to give the panel, and of course, Tola, you'll get it. Please feel free to weigh in, but also add your closing thoughts. I guess many words of inspiration for aspiring entrepreneurs here as we close out, and then we'll go around the floor as well for other closing thoughts. But if you want to weigh in on the gender matter, please.
Yes, please. By the grace of God, I have 3 daughters, and I would hate for them to grow up in a society where they are limited in terms of their opportunities. I use the term invested a lot in educating them to the highest standards. And I would like to see them achieve the fullest of their potential without being held back in any way. So the world is changing. The demands from the corporate world are changing. Right now, this issue of gender, I can assure you it's on the boardroom tables of many companies, because we realize that you cannot achieve your fullest potential if you don't have 50% of your workforce, which is what women are, represented in the highest levels of management. and leadership in the company. So, but I once went to my daughter's school, and the principal said something that has stayed with me ever since. She said, as women or as girls, I don't want you growing up believing that you should be given something simply because you're a woman. But at the same time, I don't want you denied anything because you're a woman. Huh? And that set me thinking, because it says here that we must live in a society, we must run companies that, are based on merit, where men and women can rise to the top based on what they contribute, the value they bring to the table. But we must also be alert and be sure that in that same environment, women are not being disadvantaged or denied opportunities or roles because you say, she's a woman. So I'm very conscious of that in terms of how we run. Many CEOs today, including me, one of my KPIs that is set by our board is the percentage of women that we have in leadership, both management, and on the executive committee. And I'm given a KPI for that. In filling that KPI, I know that I can't afford tokenism. I can't put women on the board or executive committee simply because they're women. They've got to be able to contribute as well, because if they don't, then that affects our overall performance. But then I must make sure that we're creating opportunities for women to rise through the organization. And that requires a different kind of management and leadership, because we find most of, women join, but somewhere in the middle part of the careers, due to marriage, childbirth, etc., we're losing a lot of women. So we're deliberately having to think the organization in terms of how do we attract and retain enough ladies so that they pass through that phase and rise to the top. What's my point here? My point here is that on the issue of gender, we've all got to it requires conscious action to help and mentor and support women to rise to the very top. I'm grateful that they have role models to look at, like Folake, Bunmi, that shows that it is possible. But all of us, men and women, must be taking actions deliberately to support and encourage women to rise to the very top, because we see the value, tremendous value that women bring to leadership. So I just wanted to say that. But for me, there's a selfish motive. I want to be sure that my daughters are not held back in any way, and all the investments I've put in them can be maximized.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I mean, look, if you're following the US elections, gender is right at the top of the matters there, right? So we'll see what happens in a few weeks. But let's round off. Dr. Ada, if you want to give us your closing thoughts here, any words of inspiration for the youth in the audience as far as entrepreneurship and development is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to use this bottle as an illustration. And why am I leaving this with us? Of course, we drink water every day, so I imagine that is something you will always remember. And this is not gender specific, whether you're a man or you're a woman, a male or female. In your pursuit for career success, we need to just maintain this God consciousness. And I'll break it down a little bit. God consciousness for me is doing things the way God will do it. So when I look at the entire planet and how God has orchestrated it and sending Christ to come, within that process, I see that God pursues more of Means goals versus ends goals. How do I mean? ENDS versus MEANS. Means goals will often outlive ends goals. Again, what do I mean? If my goal is to fill this bottle, that's an end in itself. But if my goal is to improve the process of filling this bottle, I will fill 1 million more. I'll say that again. As you pursue your career goals, seek to improve processes. Don't just seek, oh, I want to become CEO. That's an end. Why? What are you trying to improve? What process are you trying to make better? What problem are you trying to solve? So you're looking at the situation and you're asking yourself, how does this thing really work? Pardon me, I guess that's how we think in tech. How does it work right now? And how can I improve the process of how it works? In doing that, you're improving the speed, you're improving efficiency, you're improving effectiveness, you're improving several things. Rather than saying, oh, I want to be the CEO of something someday. Why? What are you, if you go with that mindset, you might get stuck somewhere along the way. But if you go with the mindset of just keep improving the things around you, the processes, just keep at it. Before you know it, you will actually arrive as a leader in your field. But you won't even stop there. You will keep going on and on. Imagine if Jesus came only to die for the generation he came for. Yes. So, but he instituted a process that generations to come, we keep enjoying from that process. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Otola. Folake, Soetan, your closing thoughts. I didn't mention your position. You noticed that?
I noticed. Thank you very much for respecting that. Okay, what I just want to leave us with is this, and this is what I live by. I want us to be purpose-focused. If you're purpose-focused, everything you do, every action you take, every single thing in development, the relationships, the mentoring, the solution mindset that I think Dr. Ada spoke about, helps you. And in summarizing what we said today about faith and resilience in, and how to navigate same, one of the things that I anchor my whole essence on is the word of God in Romans 8:28 that says that all things works together for good. All things, meaning whether it's good, whether it's bad, works together for good for those who love God. I can't remember the last part. And are called according to his purpose. So if you understand that all things work together for good for you, when you are going through that rough part, when you're going through a challenging situation, your mindset is, this is part of my journey. This challenging part is helping me develop the capacity and the capabilities and the resilience I need to achieve my focus. And so your attitude to failure, your attitude to a mistake is different. So you wouldn't spend time grumbling or complaining. Rather, you are excited about what you can learn in that particular period. And you would always go back to your faith and say, God, help me. God, help me. You have created me to be this person. Give me what I need to be able to achieve that objective. So let us be purpose-driven. It will help us make a decision to either be compromised or not to compromise, because you know that ultimately, like Mr. Tola said, what is the end game? What is success to you? I want to make heaven, but as I want to make heaven, I want to fulfill every single potential and the purpose and the reason God created me so that I die empty and make heaven. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bunmi, Popoola-Mordi, your closing thoughts as well, please.
Whose brand do you carry? What do people see when they look at you? What do they think about when you act? For me, it's about integrity, resilience, stewardship, prioritizing service, and aligning myself with the will of God. Like she used the word purpose. What is God's purpose for you? Do people see you and see the glory of God and say, in the workplace, whether as an entrepreneur, colleague, are they drawn to you and say, who does this person serve? Who is her God? Believe me, I hope that is how I am seen in the workplace, that people see me and say, she prophesies and says she has a God Almighty who she serves. I want to know this God. As we move around in our innovation, in our entrepreneurship, in working, in leadership, in stewardship, whose brand do you carry? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Tola, again, I wish you folks would see him in his elements. I've seen him at the KPMG budget day when he's breaking down economic presentations. So to see him do this in a non-business setting was really interesting. You set the tone for us, your final thoughts.
Thank you. Brothers, sisters, I would say, please never give up. Never give up. No matter what the difficulties are, no matter what is happening around you, never give up. As children of God, remember the end. The end is to make heaven. What does it profit a man if he gains the entire world and loses his soul? God has promised that he will be with us always, even until the end of time. So in that difficulty, whatever circumstance you're going through, don't give up. God is there with you. Turn to him. Ask for his guidance, his protection, his inspiration. He will give you the answer. That has been my experience. He will give you the answer. Just trust in the Lord and determine that whatever you do, whatever you lay your hands to do, you will do it excellently as service unto God, not unto man. And I assure you, things will work out well. Things will work out well in the end. So please, let's continue to encourage each other, focus on God, and we shall be more than conquerors in Christ Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Look, I want to thank the Kingdom Summit again for putting together these fantastic professionals, imparting knowledge onto our audience. Well done again to this summit, and well done to you all as well. As you notice, the bulk of this conversation was your questions. So a round of applause for yourselves for asking some very pertinent, thought-provoking questions. Please, a round of applause for our audience. Photographers, we're going to take some pictures as we all rise. Thank you all so much.